Welcome. You are listening to the Cornerstone Life podcast. We hope as you listen to these conversations, you leave encouraged that God sees you and is at work in your life.
Well, welcome to another Cornerstone Life podcast. My name is Sean Apking. I'm the lead pastor here at Cornerstone Church. This is my beautiful wife on the other side of me, Lisa Apking, and we are glad that you're here. And we pastor in Blue Springs, Missouri, right next to Kansas City. And we're excited about what we have today. We have with us some good friends of ours, one of our elders, Kelly and Cindy Hill. And we're excited that they're here today. We've known the Hills for almost 30 years, and we're excited about what they have. We're going to talk about their life. They're going to kind of give us their story, which is an amazing story, what God has done in their life. And then there's going to be a part two where we're going to actually talk about marriage. They're huge. God has used them in a mighty way in marriage ministries. And so we're excited about that. So make sure not only listen to this one and their story, how God's provided, blessed, and changed their lives, but how they also, God has used them to change other people's lives and to help many, many marriages around the country. So let's welcome Kelly and Cindy Hill today.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you. I just, when I look at you guys, I am so thankful. It's so amazing how God really does put people together for a reason. And to know that, you know, we started out when we were just in our 20s and you guys had teenagers in our youth group. And so that was, and I remember going to your house. You guys are always so about your family. And I remember you guys going to the sports games and all that stuff. And I always just looked up to you guys so much as a family. And then we also were on the worship team together. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you guys
fun
sang,
times.
Yeah.
One of the first things I remember was actually with their son, Ryan. He was, I don't know, 5 or 6 in 93, 94. And we're in the back children's room, and I was talking about the Dallas Cowboys and how, and of course, they were good back then and loved the Dallas Cowboys, but he was a big Chiefs fan. I thought he was going to get in a fight with me, you know, and because I was saying how the Chiefs aren't that good and all that kind of, who are the Chiefs? And
which they weren't at that time.
And they weren't at that time, but I think Joe Montana wasn't there with them yet. But it was a good time. I knew they were into sports and everything, so it was a really cool thing. But we've known them for many, many years.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your life, how you met, your story, about how you came to the Lord. I think that's going to be a good topic.
Well, like Lisa said, God puts people together for a reason. Mm-hmm. And when God first put us together, I was sitting in the parking lot of a Quick Trip convenience store, and all of a sudden the door opens and she jumped into my car. And I'd never met her, and she jumped in my car. I looked at her, and I put my little Dodge Omni in reverse, and I put it back, and I have not stopped since. We've been together ever since. Yeah. So God not only puts people together, but he also has a sense of humor how he does it.
Yeah.
So there is a little backstory to that story. So I know he'll just tell people that, and I'm like, okay, it makes me sound like a real floozy here, just jumping in some guy's car. But we did have some mutual friends. So I was with my friend, and her boyfriend was with him, and they were like, Cindy, jump in his car, and because they wanted to be together, and I did. We kind of knew of each other a little bit, but yeah, that started our journey together. So,
and that was before we were saved, and which a whole lot has happened since then. But for a while, we still were pretty worldly. I mean, with the partying life and the drugs and things like that, we were definitely needing salvation. That's for sure.
Well, he had just come out of a 2-year marriage, and wasn't saved, and had a daughter out of that, Mandy, who's amazing. She's our oldest daughter. And we met shortly after that. And there was a connection. We didn't know the Lord at all. And we definitely enjoyed our party life. And I can remember in my life then, I didn't have any kind of background in going to church. I did a few times here or there with a friend or a relative. But I knew in the back of my mind, I just knew that someday, I needed to know the Lord. But for some reason, 40 seemed to be that magic number I was shooting for. I thought, okay, by the time I'm 40, which sounds so silly. But I think really, I know we were talking this morning, is probably, his grandma was probably the biggest one that was probably praying for us.
Wow, that's special.
Thank God for grandmas, man.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Grandma's prayers are very, very powerful. So, so we
were married for probably a year and a half or so, and
about 6
still
months,
just
huh?
living the same life. And then Cindy met a lady at work.
Yeah, I was drawn to this lady that moved into our department at work. She was the same age as my dad, and I don't know, she was just kind of crazy and laughing all the time and had fun, and I knew she was a Christian, and I was just drawn to her like a magnet. It was amazing. So she ended up inviting us over to their apartment, her and her husband, Frank. It was Mary Jo. We went over there and started having kind of a Bible study and eating Rocky Road ice cream.
That's what got me to come.
Yeah. So we ended up giving our lives to Jesus and together prayed, and
That's so
awesome.
awesome.
It was awesome. It was a beginning of an amazing journey. We had that relationship. We were going to church with them. They came from a real traditional that's where they were, at a traditional church. And so we went with them, and, and it was okay. But Mary Jo finally just like, okay, we need to have you guys over, because they were ready to make that transition into more of a spirit-filled church. And
Because they were kind of closet charismatics.
yeah, it was funny. So we went over there, and that was probably a few months after we got saved. And because I'm thinking, okay, this is cool, but there just wasn't substance to it or something. I don't know. And so she invited us over, and we ended up, she just like opened the door to everything, and, talking about the gifts of the Spirit, talking about being baptized in the Spirit. I mean, just all that. And I'm like, this is cool.
What was one of the?
There was
What was
something
the one of the books that she had you guys read?
Pigs in the
Pigs
Parlor.
in the Parlor.
Wasn't that like one of your first books that you guys read
Yeah,
as believers?
a whole thing on deliverance ministry. I thought, okay, I think they saw.
So the first thing she had to read is about demons.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they took us to a church in Martin City that was
like
a
a-
deliverance ministry.
Yeah.
And so we went there and
It's like a Friday night
told
deliverance
us, hey,
night.
make a list of all the things you feel like you need to be delivered from. So when
we
it came
did.
my turn, I pulled this list out of my
was
pocket,
like-
about this long. And he prayed for me over and over again. And I'm just sitting there yawning.
casting things out.
Casting things out, but I couldn't stop yawning. I mean, it's one after another. And he says, that's just manifestation of your
Yeah, we're just
getting
gonna-
demons kicked out of there.
Wow.
And so it was,
How many did you have?
probably
30, 40,
a whole
I don't know.
bunch. A whole bunch.
How many husband is yours?
Watch it.
So
Wow, that's
that
really
kind
cool.
of, that started a journey.
And it started a journey, but we really hadn't given up the old lifestyle completely until we started going to Christian Center Church in Lee Summit and with Pastor Keith.
Hendrickson,
And
Yeah.
he had a guest speaker
Awesome
came
man.
in. We had not yet been filled with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, so we
And-
we just started going there, and then, but again, we still had our foot in this whole other world, and so we had this party going on at our house on a Sunday. There was people out
Afternoon.
back, we're playing horseshoes, all this stuff, everybody's drinking and stuff, and I don't know, something just like clicked in me, and I thought, I'm going to go to church tonight. We had Sunday night services, and everybody's like, what? And I just went in the house, I changed my clothes, I came out. See you later, everybody. I'm going to church.
Everybody stayed there, just
And
kept
everybody
partying.
thought it was really weird, but hey, whatever. So I left and I went to church, and we had a guest speaker that night, and the pastor was gone. And I just remember in the middle of the service, he called out my name, and I'm like, that's me, And he's like, he asked me to come up front, and he asked if I wanted the Holy Spirit. He just knew I needed it. And I said, yes. And he prayed over me, and I'll never forget. My whole body, my lips, everything down to my toes was like there was electricity just going through my body. And I felt just a huge shift. And so I went home, and I walked in the door, and Kelly and two other guys were left, some of our friends. And I walked in, and one of them goes, wow, your face is glowing.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and I'm like, and so I tell them all about it. And I'm just like, I couldn't shut up about it.
Yeah.
And then it was on my way to work that next morning that I started praying and just praying in my prayer language. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
So
it was a little bit longer before I got it because I was at church and
Couple weeks
and then Pastor Roundtree and his
Yeah.
wife were there. It's the same one that Jimmy Bradshaw talked
Yeah, he
about a
talked
couple
about
weeks
it.
ago,
Yeah.
and mentioned
Yeah.
about them. And they're the ones that spoke over me and prayed over me to where I received the Holy Spirit, started speaking in tongues, and it's been. I don't want to say downhill ever since because there's been some hills up and down, but it was probably the turning point in our spiritual lives.
Yeah.
And I think that for us, it created we just like drew a line. It's kind of like, okay, here's our old world, here's our new world. And we wanted to just step fully into it. And we knew, I guess just because of our background, it's like we need to make a clean cut, you know, and step over because if you're trying to navigate both, there's no way. We knew we would get pulled back into it. It's funny. I think one of the last things in my life that I'm like, okay, I got to get rid of this. I loved music.
Rock and roll
and
music.
I loved, the old Leonard Skinner was like my favorite old band. And I don't know, back then, all the worship was really kind of taken off, and it's like I need to stay in this lane. And so we were on vacation in New England. We were on a road trip, and it was one night. It was dark. We were driving through Vermont or something, and we had that one cassette. I thought, let's just play a little bit of this music. Well, we were playing it, and then all of a sudden, pshing, it just clicks off, and some radio station came on. This guy is talking about the Bible. We're like, boom, put it back in, and it's going again, and then it just clicked off. I'm like, this never done that before.
We did several
And
times.
so we just pulled it out, probably rolled the window down back then, and just flung it. I just flung it out there. I thought, okay, that's it. I'm listening. So anyway, that was some real,
And we've been
impactful years.
really blessed to sit under some excellent teachers and leaders and preachers. You guys being a couple of them
Right.
in our walk with the Lord, and it's just been a blessing.
And
So
just
how many years have you guys been married?
43.
43 years,
Yeah.
and you have 3 kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We have Mandy, who is our oldest. That was my daughter from my first marriage,
Right.
which is Cindy
Pretty
is
amazing.
just her mom,
Yeah.
and she is. I mean that.
one of her moms.
Yeah, that is
that was
definitely a blessing from God. I got out of a situation that was probably not real comfortable, but it was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he took you where you were at. That's the
Yes.
beauty of it. So,
Yeah.
So it was good. And then, then Ryan and Mandy. So,
And we had
I'm sorry,
Whitney.
Golly. Back to Mandy. Okay, I'm going down to Whitney.
Yeah.
But actually, okay, that's why I got messed up. Andrea. So we have a daughter after Ryan. So he was about 3.5. And she actually yesterday would have been her 35th birthday.
Wow.
So she is a daughter that I went into labor on my due date and went to the hospital, and we got there, and I could tell the nurses started feeling a little frantic, and I'm thinking, okay, there's something wrong here. And they couldn't find a heartbeat. They had to wait for the doctor to get there to kind of confirm everything. So I just remember at that moment, I'm thinking, wow, what do?
Yeah.
You don't even know quite how to handle it. I think at first it was like, just knock me out, cut me open, and let's just do this thing, get it over with.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, he goes, let's go ahead. You need to give birth and all that. It's going to be so much better. And so we did. And she was a beautiful little girl. There was nothing wrong, and they really couldn't find anything. So that was kind of a part of our story that we're like, I think during that time, when you hear the scripture about just that supernatural peace of God that transcends all understanding,
Yes.
guarding your heart and your mind, that truly is a time where I felt his peace like I've never felt before. So it was, but we knew, we're like, okay, this isn't the end, and the Lord's got something for us here.
and we will
Yeah.
see her again.
Yeah,
Yes.
it really opened up, there's heaven, there's, all this, but it made it so much more real knowing that Andrea was there, that we're going to see her someday.
And we got to use it as a witness to people that couldn't believe we were handling it so well.
And it wasn't in our strength. I mean, that's where it was.
So there was supernatural ability.
Yes.
To heal the pain that you were going through. There's a grace.
Yeah.
God knew that was happening. There's a grace to do that. So after that, did you deal with fear? Any kind of fear, like even have another child?
Actually, we just right away wanted to start, go for another baby. And I think we there was some processing. The funny thing is, I think the best therapy for me was my son, Ryan. He was probably 3.5 at the time, just asking all kinds of questions, making comments, observations. One day we were driving down 470. It was just beautiful blue skies and these big white fluffy clouds. He's in the back and all of a sudden he goes, "Mom, look, I think Andrea, she's up behind that cloud swinging or something." And I'm like, oh my gosh, and cool. I think that just helped me. I couldn't just shut down or anything. It just made us talk about it, which was really good.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
and within a few years, God rewarded us with our daughter Whitney, who was a blessing. Who was
within a year.
It's been a big joy in our lives ever since.
Yeah. And now they all have kids. How many grandkids do you have?
7.
Yeah.
7 grandkids.
Yeah.
And the oldest one is
just got married.
26, and she just got married.
Yes.
And then it jumps down to 9, 7, 5, 4. We got twin girls who are 4.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
They keep us busy, and we thoroughly enjoy them.
You guys are such great grandparents. I mean, I just love the stories that I hear and the pictures that I see of how engaged and involved you guys are. And it's the same story that I remember that you had with your kids when they were in the house, and how you were so, family was so important, and how you were like their coach, Kelly, and you homeschooled, and you guys did vacations together, and you guys served together in the church. And that's one thing I really feel like you guys just you totally inspired me as young as we were when we first met, that I want to be like them. It always kind of felt like you guys were just like one season. And like, I don't have grandkids yet. Yeah. So it always just seemed like you guys were one season ahead of me. But to be able to have you guys to watch, I mean, I have had such an honor for you guys, and how faithful you guys have been, and how you had your kids serve with you,
You always kept them, their eyes on the Lord. And I think that was a good thing. You never rejected the church. You never rejected the Lord. You weren't too busy for Jesus.
Right.
But you were busy in their lives, and they were doing things. They didn't miss out. They were in sports, they were in other things, but you really kept their eyes straight. And I thought that's been a really cool thing.
Yeah, that's a really, really awesome testimony, because I believe that, that's part of being successful in our homes, is having Jesus first, and being involved in the church, and having community, and having discipleship in your life like you did. And you went after that.
Yeah, so. I think sometimes, that where we see, sometimes families in the church or whatever is just so going opposite directions nonstop. And I think that was one thing that we just thought, okay, we want to be a unit. And I don't know, it was always important. I think when you're married and you have kids, you're always like, okay, you had your own experience growing up, so you want to improve or do something better than the previous generation. They did the best they could. Now you're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
And then you want your kids to do even better, and excel beyond. But that was something that we did enjoy. I know back, when we were doing worship, and, we brought our kids to worship practice, and they'd hang out. Well, then Ryan started playing, and then Whitney started doing stuff. And even in children's church, when we did that, the kids would look forward to our time at children's church, because we'd have donuts, we'd bring it, and we'd practice parts.
That's right. You guys did kids ministry.
We did the same. Yeah, it was fun.
Hey, what you had a character that you played.
I had a couple of them. Hippie Harry and Chinese Charlie. And, Cash Kidwell.
I forgot about all that.
It was fun.
That was
for
really
quite a while.
fun.
So Lisa and I met them about 30 years ago. In 1993, we moved to Lee Summit, went to the same church that they were at. We're youth pastors. So we began to meet them, but we really got to know them is that they started a group called Forever Newlyweds. So tell us about that time.
Yeah, how you guys got started
enter
in
into
that.
Okay. Well, we had a heart for marriages because we were seeing friends and a lot of people we knew get divorces. And it was just, we knew that's not of God. God didn't want that. And so we'd just it'd been on our heart a lot. And then one day we had a group from Costa Rica come to our church. And they were pretty wild and crazy. The place was rocking all the time. And we had a lady come up to us that didn't speak English. She had a prophetic word for us. And she got us and another young couple that we didn't even know hardly and pulled them and said,
didn't know them,
and gave us a word in Spanish. We had to have an interpreter and said, you guys are really have a heart for marriage and God is going to bless you with a marriage ministry of sort for this church. And it just kind of blew our minds. But the same time, the other couple, they had it on their hearts for a while. So we got together, and that's when we decided to start Forever Newlyweds. And we did it for about 7 years.
7, 8, something like that. But the cool thing was it's like that prophetic word totally came and confirmed something that was already working in our hearts.
Yeah,
so that was really, that was awesome. And then that was Pastor Allen at the time, so we were at that church and started the ministry. The other piece of that too that really stirred in you, remember that one guy that said
we were standing in church after I was talking to him at the back of the sanctuary after a service, and then all of a sudden I looked across and there was Cindy on the other end of and our eyes met, and then we had a big smile and kind of a flirty type smile. And as I was talking to him, he looked over at her, then looked back at me, and he said, I wish my wife looked at me like that, like yours that looks at yours.
Oh, wow.
And that was before we started the Forever Newlyweds. And that really had a lasting impression on my heart. And right then I knew that I never wanted that to ever go away.
Right.
And then whenever we do our marriage ministry or anything, that's something that I always bring forth to the people there as an example. And we haven't lost that look. We call it the look. And it's something that if we don't have it, then we need to get together and figure out why.
Yeah.
At that point. So
good.
now she gives me other looks too. I know it's not the same thing.
There's the look, there's
the look.
Definitely some different looks.
But at least you get back to the look that you want to
there
get
you
to.
go.
So.
Yeah. That's really,
So we
really
started
special.
that, and then you guys were a part of that.
Yes.
That was fun.
We had a lot of fun with that.
Our progressive
You guys
dinners.
were so creative on how we just had so much fun. A lot of laughter.
We were young. I mean, we were in our early 20s and didn't have kids at that time. And it was just neat getting together and, having fun together, but also, having the word and encouraging us to have good marriages and you guys were an example to that.
Yeah, and I remember the trophy that we would pass around on who could win
I
the
almost
romance.
brought it today.
And so if you did the most romantic thing or something, and we would vote on who, and that's the key. That's something that I feel just knowing you, because we're friends. We love hanging out together. We hang out like we have New Year's Eve parties together, and we love to get together and play games and so you guys just know how to have fun. It's very fun. My kids love even hanging out with you. Joy, who's 13, loves hanging out with you. I mean, so no wonder your grandkids love hanging out with you. But that's something that I don't think everyone in the world has, is the joy that you guys carry. And I know that's what gives you guys the strength, because we've been through a lot together. We've personally had things where you guys have come alongside us and you've had that strength and you helped us not quit. And I love being for you guys too. And I just, but there's something you said that you can't have fun without it. And so that's what you said. Yeah. And so it's like it's not going to just fall on, from the sky. It's something that you are intentional. And I think I really, really appreciate that.
So not everything's been that rosy, right? So going on further on into your life here, because that was back in the 90s. So tell us a little bit
We
more.
sound
Tell
really
us
old. Back in the 90s.
Nice.
They weren't up there.
So you've tell us some things that maybe that you want to share that you have gone through and how you handle those things, whether it's fighting, whether it's health issues, whether it's financial issues. Tell us some of those.
All in one.
All in one, yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
let you tell
I think our
the health.
the financial thing. I think looking back on, the years where we maybe had more challenges, where did our faith have to really be strengthened? Back when, we worked, he was working with the builder at the time. And then we shifted into our own business. And that was, flipping houses and kind of getting into real estate. And so we started that, and it was a little rocky. We'd have some successes. We'd have some, that one didn't turn out so good. Our first one actually made the news. It was a disaster.
I don't think I know that.
Yeah,
That's great.
We'll have to tell that story sometime. Maybe we won't get into it now. I don't know. It was
Roofers jumped for their life from a house.
oh my
and
gosh.
It,
Kelly was like-
it was on the news. The T's were on all three major channels.
Oh yeah, Kelly.
Oh, my
I was all like,
goodness.
"Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do?" And and blah blah blah. And he's like, because the news people are out there. They've got enough going on in the city. It's not even going to be on. It won't even make the news. It was like the leading story. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock,
It was a
10
slow
o'clock.
news day. Huh?
Yeah. So
remember
that was
this.
crazy. But yeah, so that was just one thing. But that was a time where also then, we got a real estate license and we were kind of, transitioning into working more for other people. And that's when, the market was kind of crashing back in 2008, and it was kind of prior to that. But I don't know. We went through a time, and I felt like we really stretched our finances big time during the rehabbing.
Depleted.
Depleted. And it got really stressful, more for me probably than him. I was the one trying to keep everything, the bills, everything all afloat. It was very stressful.
And it wasn't so much because I had more faith. I just was good at putting my head in the sand.
Maybe. Yeah. So we just knew something had to shift. So I remember we thought we're going all in. Number one, we shut the door to our office a lot. Like if agents were walking by, somebody's griping or, the market, whatever.
But first of all,
we can't listen
she
to it.
made me quit my rehabbing and come and be a full-time real estate agent with
Yeah,
her.
it was time for a change.
And that was a smart
At the time it was, because I was getting busier and I needed help. But we just kind of turned off all the negativity and didn't watch the news, didn't subscribe to anything like that. I remember we got 30 days to financial freedom, like a Kenneth Copeland study that was awesome. We went through Dave Ramsey at the same time. It's like, let's throw everything at it and let's really watch our words and have, a lot of speak things over ourselves and the truth of God's word. And
a lot of praying in the spirit and a lot of worship.
And just not subscribe to things. That's when we decided we're going to cancel. We're not going to subscribe to this or that. And then right after that is when we got involved in the Love After Marriage ministry too, and everything shifted. It was like everything made a shift, and that really, I think during those years, I really learned to just totally put my trust, in the Lord day by day.
Yeah.
And just, it's okay. If you're doing a little bit of a roller coaster thing, when you're in the down mode, it's okay because you're going back up. And I just believed that.
Between that and seeking the Lord's wisdom and hearing His voice and being obedient to what He tells us to do.
Right.
We did that in that year span, and within that next year, we were
having some of our best years.
debt free
So-
other than a house.
Yeah.
And it was just, God just blessed us, and we were obedient, and He was amazing.
Yeah. Just to be in the faithfulness to God and what He's told you to do, and to really dig in and not go away. I think that's what you guys did. You guys dug into the things of God, not the wisdom of the world or anything, but you dug into God, and that's the blessing that's happened because of that. And that's really a great testimony of what we saw in you guys as you guys were doing that. And now God's blessed you and continues to bless you even more. But there was something else that you guys went through that was...
That was this last well, it's been the last 10 or 12 years, 10 to 11 years, but it just culminated this year. And do you want to?
Yeah, I talked Kelly into going to a cardio scan.
About 12 years ago.
Yeah, I'm like, let's just go. It's $50 at the hospital. And so we did.
First of all, I want to say I have been very healthy, never had any problems.
I agree.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
have.
played a lot of sports. I did a lot of this. I didn't eat probably as good as I should have, but I started eating better. But so then we go and do
so we
this.
go to this cardio scan and we find out that, hey, your hearts look great.
No plaque.
Except, one little major thing, and that was that Kelly was born with a bicuspid valve, aortic valve, and we were supposed to have 3 leaflets. He had 2, and which served him well, his entire life. But he also had an aneurysm that I guess over time that developed. We don't know how long he had it, and it was pretty sizable. And this guy's like, you need to get in surgery now, and that was 12 years ago. And then we saw a heart surgeon. He's like, no, you're really healthy. Let's just hold this off, blah, blah, blah. But then in the last year, we were getting more counsel.
Because every year we'd go back and have it checked again.
Yeah, just to keep a handle on it. But it really, we felt after that last visit that it was time to get something done.
So how many years was that you guys
About
just
12 to 13
just
years.
rested?
And we just trusted, and the aneurysm really didn't grow.
Didn't
Right.
Which is very
just
abnormal.
slightly, maybe.
And
very slightly.
but then here this last year, when we went and got another opinion, we just felt like the Lord was saying, He's saying it is time. And
And we had a peace about it. I mean, I kept telling the Lord, first choice is just miraculous healing. That's always first, you know. And it's like, but we wanted to be open to wisdom that, if we were supposed to go the second option, we needed to know clear cut. Oh yeah, I forgot about another huge piece of that. So we needed to hear God clearly, because that's it was a major open heart surgery.
Yeah.
So we were praying, and then I ended up, talking to a friend that works at the hospital he's going to be going to. She got me, connected with somebody, finding the best doctors, who would they recommend? Well, the Lord totally gave me a dream. It was such a God dream. I woke up, I had the picture of the doctor in the dream, the way it all happened. There was such a message in that for us. I woke up, I'm like, oh my gosh, Kelly, you got to hear this dream.
it was pretty amazing.
I went down, and it's like I saw the doctor's face, and I knew who he was. And then it just confirmation again. Wow. It's like 2 days later, I'm talking to the nurse, of the floor of that unit. And I said, I do have some referrals. And I gave her these names. I didn't tell her who was in the dream. I didn't tell her about the dream. She probably think I was weird, but she totally said his name. She goes, well, that's funny, because one of those doctors is who we were going to thought it was a perfect match for Kelly. And we looked at each other, we're like, okay,
That's
here
awesome.
we go. And so we went and saw him, and
we had such
set the
a
date.
peace.
Yeah, it was.
We
It was
talked
amazing.
to him, and can we say the hospital?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, it was KU Med Center.
Yeah.
And I'm a Missouri Tiger fan. It was really hard for me to do that. But it was such a blessing. They were amazing. And
But it was good. It was
Yes.
a good thing. So
And-
that was July 10th, right?
yes. And
And
we
you
were
went through it exceptional. I mean, like what they thought was going to be like 4 to 6, it was like 3
Yeah,
or something
3
like
well,
that.
or the
I mean,
most.
I went in. Well, first of all, we had our kids for 2 weeks before that. The grandkids.
yeah, the grandkids. We brought them up from
them
Florida.
up.
Oh, yeah.
We planned it all this way. We knew we were going to do it on the 10th. We were going to go get our kids about 2 or 3
4
weeks before
grandkids,
that.
road trip.
And we brought them all back. And then once we gave them to the our son-in-law's parents, we went straight to the hospital and did all the pre-op stuff. And then the idea was that I get well enough that I could dance at my granddaughter's wedding, which was in August. And so everything went so well. I mean, ahead of plan on everything. The surgeon said it was just amazing. All the checkups afterwards, there was no moisture on the lungs or anything at all. It was just God's hand was all over it.
Yeah.
And it was just further confirmation that, I mean, sure, we want God to heal us right on the spot, but sometimes he wants to do it otherwise so that we have people's lives we can touch with the testimonies and everything. And I believe that was it. And I mean, it was just...
It's like no matter what. It's funny in saying that. It's like I think the key is just having trust no matter what. It's
Right.
kind of like a no matter
Trust
what.
no matter what.
You
That's
know,
right.
because sometimes we can get things so stuck in our head, and then we're trying to figure things out.
We're trying
You know?
to get it done our own way,
Yeah.
but just to trust God no
Right.
matter what. And I think that's the key. Is that throughout your life, if you listen to this podcast, you see that no matter what was happening, that you kept on going to the Lord, and He led and guided you. It hasn't always been easy, but it's always been good.
Yes.
And God brings about the healing, the trust, and everything else.
Yeah.
And
That's
so-
one thing about just how you guys always expect the goodness of the Lord. And it's like that verse you were telling me.
Yeah, I've got
in
that. I'm
Psalms
going to read it.
27.
This has been kind of a life verse, I guess. You know, especially when you're going through things. In Psalm 27, verses 13 and 14, and I love the Amplified. It's what would have become of me had I not believed I would see the Lord's goodness in the land of the living. So, I mean, even stopping right there, it's, you know, if you're not going to believe you're going to see something good, then what other option is there? You know,
Right.
it can't be good. And wait and hope for and expect the Lord. Be brave and of good courage. Let your heart be stout and enduring. Yes, wait for and hope for and expect the Lord. That's been a real source for me. You know,
Yeah.
those verses, I've just always loved that.
It's powerful.
So,
And that's something for you guys that if you're going through something, God is there for you. He's not
That's
mad
right.
at you. He loves you, and He does have a plan for you. And so I want to encourage you just to be thinking about Him. Do like the hills have done. They continue to go towards the Lord and seek His face. God has a plan for you, and it's going to be good. So thanks for joining us for this session. We have another one that's going to be coming up, and we're going to dive into the marriage ministry that they got involved in 2012 and how God led them and has helped hundreds of marriages, not only here in the Kansas City area, but even throughout our country. And so I want to encourage you to join us and see that, because we're going to talk about some marriage tips and some things that you can do to better your marriage. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the Cornerstone Life podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love to meet you. Join us any Sunday at 10 a.m. at Cornerstone Church in Blue Springs. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and share. See you next time.